Alright, here is my NaNoWriMo novel that I was working on. I got about 1,000 more words on it. Making some progress. Hey guys, what's going on? This is Lucas, and today I'm doing my January wrap-up. It is talking about what I have read and what I have watched in the month of January. Now, I haven't read much in January, but I don't read much in general, so unfortunately, I'm coming up a bit low in that department. But anyway, I read a couple of good books of interest. One was a reread of Deep Trouble. Deep Trouble. Deadass. And admittedly, I kind of cheated a little bit because I just finished rereading that today, like an hour ago. So technically that isn't part of the January wrap-up, but I read like 80% of it in January, so I'm going to count it here anyway, especially since I don't know when else I'm going to talk about it. So yeah, to get into the first book I read, the first book was Change Your Brain, Change Your Grades by Daniel Amen. I believe that's his name. Yeah, that's his name. I'm an expert at this. Basically, Change Your Brain, Change Your Grades is about a set of study skills and neuroscience that is involved around maximizing your potential when it comes to studying. The focus is on high school and college students, and it goes over a plethora of different tactics and different stories and the neuroscience behind how we learn and what kind of personality types there are. I generally am skeptical when it comes to people who publish productivity stuff or studying or talk about the brain and don't have any credentials in there. That's just, something that I do. But Dr. Daniel Amen is an actual medical doctor, so I tend to trust him more than I trust, a random person. So he starts off the book by going over different brain types, and these brain types are denoted by activity that happens in the brain during these, I think they call them SPEC scans, and it gives you an overall gauge of which parts of the brain are engaging in the most activity and ratios and all that. And so that takes up a good fourth of the book. I would say the first fourth, and he comes up with some quizzes and some ideas on how you can identify your brain type and what kind of studying would be best for you, whether you're a persistent type person or you're a spontaneous type person, or I forgot the other two or three categories, but there's basically 5 base categories, and then there's combination categories. I myself am a type 8, which I think is spontaneous, persistent, and one other I can't remember. But yeah, and then it just basically breaks down how to study in each of those brain types once you've done that little quiz. And then after that it goes along and it follows the study tips that you'd see in any productivity like YouTuber's channel. It goes over the Pomodoro technique. It goes over spaced repetition like you'd see in Anki. It goes over how you should take notes, how you should highlight, whether or not you should highlight or underline, how you should handle approaching lectures, how you should handle approaching exams, and how keeping yourself and your brain healthy with your physical body is just as important as keeping your mental habits in check. And honestly, I found the book very refreshing because it not only is it backed by neuroscience and it's written by a medical doctor, but it also has footnotes and little tiny notes on the side from current college students, which I believe are his niece and her friend, Chloe and Eliza. So you get like a kind of their opinion on whatever technique he's talking about, like a tip from Chloe and Eliza to kind of like bolster the idea or give you a current student's perspective on that idea. So I think that whether or not you're in high school or you're in college, whether or not you're a freshman or a senior in high school or in college, this book can only serve to help you because this goes over pretty much all of what you would expect when it comes to studying. And so I think that almost any student can get something of value out of this. So for that, I rate it 4.5 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was Deep Trouble. Yes, Deep Trouble, my favorite Goosebumps book. I reread it again because I wanted to see if I liked it just as much as I did before, and lo and behold, it did not disappoint. I do like it just as much as I did before. And it made me think about the idea of children's horror versus adult horror, and I'm going to probably make another video like this just on that topic, kind of like tying it in with the Goosebumps franchise, because I want to talk about a couple other Goosebumps books and how their covers kind of scared me as a child. And I think that children's horror is very fascinating because you can't show on-screen gore in the pages, you can't curse, you can't show people dying. You can reference death, but you can't show death exactly. And so a lot of the scares have to come from sort of like either existential dilemmas, permanent changes to a lifestyle, things that don't seem quite right, sort of like even eldritch horrors can play into children's horror. So I think that's really fascinating. And Deep Trouble does that quite well, especially if you're afraid of deep water, if you're afraid of the ocean because of thalassophobia, because there are some parts in the book where the characters feel trapped and they're in the ocean and they feel like they can't get out and they feel like they're suffocating. And so I feel like even if you're not a kid, that can still scare some people. And so I think that that underscores the capabilities of R.L. Stine as a children's horror writer. And so basically Deep Trouble is about these two siblings, Billy and Sheena, and their uncle, Dr. D, and his intern, Alexander, on their boat studying various different fish in the ocean. And I can't say much more than that without spoiling it, because most Goosebumps books are very short. However, when I do make my full Goosebumps book talking about the covers and the specific stories that I liked, I will go more into detail with that. But overall, yeah, I would say it's absolutely as solid as I remember it. 4 out of 5 stars. Now on to what I watched. Now the first thing I watched that I want to talk about is Cobra Kai. Now, Cobra Kai, I'm sure most of you know, is a hit that is currently on Netflix and has 3 seasons. It follows the story of the original Karate Kid movies with Ralph Macchio and the guy who plays the antagonist, the guy who plays Lawrence, and it just kind of goes over how Johnny Lawrence tries to revive Cobra Kai with different ideals. And it's very action heavy, it's very 80s centric when it comes to its style and its throwbacks. And so I think if you liked the Karate Kid movies, or you just liked action movies in general, coming of age movies, I think you'll definitely like that series. One thing that I will say that I didn't really care for with the series was the fact that it gave you these obvious hooks for drama. And basically what I mean is it would give you this point where two characters are having a misunderstanding, and you know that if they just talk to each other it would be solved immediately, but then it carries on multiple episodes, and of course it's not solved by them talking to each other. But you know, when do people listen to each other in real life anyways, right? And so that accounts for much of the drama, is misunderstandings and not interpreting things correctly between the characters. But overall, I would say it is a solid show, and it's actually better than any of the movies, in my opinion. The characters and the character developments and the development arcs of the characters are just beautiful. Some of the characters I didn't think I would end up liking, I liked in the end, and some of the characters that I started off liking, I really didn't care for towards the end. And I really like that. I like the fact that it developed so naturally. And so definitely watch it, especially if you're a fan of 80s action movies. One thing I would suggest is if you're watching it on Netflix, speed through the preview. Don't watch the preview and go just like as fast as you can, go to the next episode when you're done with the first one, and just ignore any sort of autoplay that comes up, because I guarantee you it will give you an extreme spoiler for the third and currently final season for the show. I ended up spoiling a little something for myself because I hadn't even watched the first season before I binged this show. And so just keep that in mind. If you're going to watch it on Netflix, just plow through. Don't pay attention to the preview. Just go in and as fast as possible start up an episode. And I hope you enjoy it. And the last thing I watched in the month of January was the movie Kids in 1995, written by Harmony Korine and directed by Larry Clark. Now, Harmony Korine is a very interesting character, and as a writer, as a director, and as a person who just makes movies, because he has this amazing capability of making me feel absolutely disgusted and yet intrigued by his ideas he presents in his movies. This movie, if you're not aware, is about a group of hoodlums in New York City in the 90s who are basically just going around and just having sex, doing drugs, and partaking in underage drinking. And so it's got a very heavy, sexual and drug-ridden undertone to it. And I would also say that, trigger warning if you have problems with sexual assault, because it has issues with that as well. But this movie, much like Harmony Korine's other movies, really makes me want to wash my hands after I watch it. There are times when I see the despicable main characters like Telly and Casper doing something, and I'm like, don't touch that, don't touch that. And then when they're done, I'm like, wash your hands, please wash your hands. And then they don't, and I'm like, oh gosh, no. But the movie is really good. It's really gritty, and it's a good commentary on sort of the, sexualized culture and, I suppose, toxic masculinity. So I would say that it is an important film. I would say that if you can stomach themes of sexual assault and drug abuse and things like that, then definitely go watch it. It's worth a watch. And yeah, also one other thing I wanted to say is that Chloe Sevigny, the girl who plays Jenny in the movie, was one of my first Hollywood crushes. She's just so cute, and I just love her in this movie and pretty much anything that she does. Anyway guys, that's what I watched and read in the month of January. Hopefully you liked this, and if you did, give it a thumbs up and subscribe, because that always helps, and I love interacting with you guys. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I hope you're doing well. So, this is Lucas, and I'll catch you later.